I'm here because I am a roaring lion crying out righteousness. There are several things I want to discuss regarding what happened last evening with the news that broke out of the state of Colorado that in a decision of 4-3 that Donald John Tribulation Trump was not eligible because of his participation in the insurrection and the assault upon the Temple of Democracy on the 6th of January, that the state of Colorado is barred because of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution from allowing Trump to be on the ballot in the state of Colorado. So as it stands right now, if nothing else changes and that ruling remains overturned by the Supreme Court, if Trump runs, he'll be running in 49 states rather than 50 states. However, if the Supreme Court does not overturn the ruling in the state of Colorado, which I'm going to find it, if they do that, it's possible that they will, because, I mean, you got Clarence Thomas on there, and then you got a few others who may have their lives and livelihood threatened by the MAGA crowd, who may decide to go and overturn and let Trump overturn the statements of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. And the 14th Amendment to the Constitution is a very, very clear, very simple process by which it is stated that anyone who has taken the oath of office, yet have later turned and led an insurrection against the government of which he has taken an oath of office to defend, shall not be eligible to ever serve in any office again. And it's valid. There's not a lot of argument there. I'm going to ask the engineer to much of my chagrin, to bring up Joy Reid of MSNBC, who, because when the story broke at 6 o'clock last night in Colorado time, I think it was 8 o'clock hour, 7 o'clock our time, and something like that. And so she was the first anchor to be able to actually get the story. I think she was ill-dressed for it. You know, I say this, I'm a fashionista, so okay, you can call me that. But I think that she was ill-dressed for this moment. When and this is an aside, and this maybe to help you in some of your careers and your profession going forward. You know, I put on a suit and tie and a vest pretty much every day. Seldom do I. I know the new thing today is to don't wear a tie, let your shirt hang loose, and then they got these sweaters with the zip on them, and then they got little things around there where, you know, your zipper, and it looks like a turtleneck, but it's not really a turtleneck. It's a turtleneck with a zipper, and everybody wears them all. I got one or two, but I come to this desk, you know, you never know what the Lord's going to say. Joy Reid came to the desk last night in a leather outfit, looked like she'd get ready to go riding with the thunder, with a bunch of bikers on the back of a motorcycle, the way she looked last night. Wrong attire, Joy Reid, for last night, but we're going to have to listen to you in that leather jacket anyway. Looked like you were a dominatrix or something. All right, Miss India, go ahead.
We begin tonight with major breaking news. A bombshell ruling from the Colorado Supreme Court in just the last hour states that Donald Trump is disqualified from holding the office of president and from appearing on the Republican primary ballot in that state. In a more than 200-page ruling, the court found that Trump is ineligible for the White House under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. The court found that the district court was correct in its early ruling, calling the January 6th attack on the Capitol an insurrection, and that Trump, quote, engaged in that insurrection through his personal actions. The court noted, we do not reach these conclusions lightly. We are mindful of the magnitude and weight of the questions now before us. We are likewise mindful of our solemn duty to apply the law without fear or favor, and without being swayed by public reaction to the decisions that the law mandates we reach. This frankly stunning and unprecedented decision could have major implications in the 2024 race, in which Trump is currently the Republican frontrunner. The decision will likely be appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court, which could decide the matter on a national level. And when a big news item like this drops, there's one person we want to talk to more than anybody else. So, of course, Rachel Maddow joins me now on the phone. Rachel, we had a whole show planned, my friend, and that is completely upended. This is what we're talking about now. I am festooned with papers in front of me, but I just want to listen to you react to what Colorado's Supreme Court has done.
Yeah, Joy, first of all, thank you for having me on. I know it's very short notice, and we're all just trying to absorb this. Listen, I think in the broad strokes, in terms of our democracy, there are very few magic wands. there are very few sort of magic spells that you cast that make a complex and difficult problem go away. It just doesn't happen very often in our political system, and I think that we shouldn't be under any illusions about the character and the partisan inclinations, among other things, of this current Supreme Court as it is constituted. That said, this is not a crazy thing for a democracy to do. This is something that was a hallmark of post-war Germany after World War II. This is something that happened to Jair Bolsonaro in Brazil quite recently. This is something that our own Congress did in 1868 after our own Civil War, specifically to preclude anybody from holding office in this country who had engaged in insurrection against this country. And so it's not unheard of, but it would be an incredible wild card.
It would indeed. And to your very point, there are 14 members who were expelled during the Civil War for supporting the Confederacy. Mm-hmm. The 14th Amendment, Section 3, was written for the Confederacy. It was written because of that insurrection. And I think what was the most stunning to me, Rich, I haven't gone through this, a very, very thick ruling. It's a big stack of paper. But the part that I've gotten through, what I found the most stunning is that what this court has said is that the previous court, the lower court, was not wrong in saying that Donald Trump engaged in insurrection. Their only error was saying that Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which again was to prevent insurrectionists from serving, didn't apply to presidents. They said, oh no, we agree with the lower court. He did engage in insurrection, but Section 3 does in fact apply to presidents. I guess it was surprising that the lower court said that it didn't.
Yeah, and it's interesting. After that district court ruling, the Trump side appealed part of it, and the plaintiffs appealed the other part of it. And so it was a real question as to what the Colorado Supreme Court was going to do here. But let's keep in mind the scale of this. So this is about Colorado only. You said it will likely be appealed to the Supreme Court. It will certainly be appealed to the United States Supreme Court. And then their ruling, depending on what they rule, they could just swat this down and make this go away. But if they engage with it in a more nuanced way, or if indeed they agree with the findings of the Colorado Supreme Court, then this will be something that has national implications, and this will apply in many states. And so, listen, I don't think this is the way that Donald Trump's political career ends ultimately, because of what we know about this iteration of the United States Supreme Court. But the factual findings about him having engaged in insurrection, as defined technically for the purposes of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which says insurrectionists cannot hold office in this country. It's not that you can't run for office, it's that you cannot hold office in this country because you have broken your oath. That is it's not a flippant decision. They did fact finding to arrive at that, and it's going to matter some way. I don't believe it will be a magic wand that ends his political career, but this is a substantive finding and a real surprise from the Colorado Supreme Court.
Absolutely. Well, let's break that down into two pieces. Let's first talk about how much it could expand.
Let me just pause for a second, Mr. Engineer. The matter is, and the question on everybody's mind is that how is the Supreme Court going to respond to this? I would want to think, first of all, that past this prologue, that, as you know, Barack Hussein, the long-legged Mack Daddy Obama, was also under the indictment of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. And in case you're not a constitutional scholar and not even aware of the 14th Amendment, the 13th Amendment to the Constitution abolished slavery in America. The United States Constitution said no man can own another man as a slave. End of story, right? And that was the 13th Amendment to the Constitution. Abraham Lincoln was able to get that passed through Congress, like Lyndon Johnson did in much of his Great Society legislation he did back in the 1960s. The 14th Amendment, which followed the 13th Amendment to the Constitution itself was amended to say that anybody, after slaves were set free by the millions, then anybody that was born in America was naturally born on American soil, whether it be Mississippi or Montana, you are indeed a citizen, no matter what your religion is, no matter what your face color, skin color is. If you were born on the American soil, you are a natural-born citizen. That's what the 14th Amendment was all about in the first place. Once the slaves were free, many of the slave owners who said, okay, we can't have slaves, but these people are not citizens. They're not American citizens. They're slaves. So the Congress had to get together and remedy that by putting together the 14th Amendment to the Constitution and say, well, you have to, if you're born in America, you're a natural-born citizen. And that's the premise of 14th Amendment. Then, of course, you got Section 3, which further defines in that amendment to the Constitution that if anyone who has taken the oath of office but has yet participated in an insurrection against the Constitution or given aid and comfort to anybody who has taken insurrection or taken up arms against the Constitution shall not be able to hold office. It's pretty clear. It's very clear. Now, but if past this prologue, what's going to happen? Barack Obama was able to skate, and I did everything within my potential power to demonstrate that Barack Obama was not born in America. He was born in Kenya. And I had a lot of followers at that time that believed it, and we were able to demonstrate it in the New York Times and major news articles, in America that Obama, they didn't say they agreed with me, but at least they published me. Because the 14th Amendment precluded him. The 14th Amendment also said that if you were not natural born, you cannot hold the office of president. So let's look at the 14th Amendment to the Constitution from this perspective. First of all, with Obama. The 14th Amendment says anybody who's born in America is natural born and therefore has rights and privileges to all of what the Constitution provides and can hold office, the office of the president. But the 14th Amendment also says if you are not born a citizen of America, you cannot hold the office of the president. In segment 3 of that same amendment to the Constitution, it says if you've ever taken up arms against the Constitution or given aid and comfort to anybody who's done that in an insurrection way, you cannot hold the office of president. So it's clear. There's no argument. But the pastor's prologue statement says this: Obama was able to obfuscate it because people knew that he wasn't natural born, but they didn't want the clear constitutional statement to preclude him, to stop him, to bar him from being president. So they whitewashed it. The media and rose up in arms and power to make Obama a natural born citizen. He wasn't, and he still isn't. Now the same fate is falling on Trump, but for a different purpose, because of the insurrection, segment 3 of the United States Constitution, 14th Amendment to the Constitution. I'm going to listen to a little bit more of dominatrix with that leather jacket. What was she thinking about anyway? That leather? What she think she's going? Over a ride on a motorcycle? What, Rolling Thunder or something? What is that with you, Joy? All right, so I'm going to let you listen a little bit more about this, and then I'll have some wrap-up thoughts about where I think this is going to go, how is America going to treat this, and listen to some of the dumb things that people are saying about the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, the same way that people said dumb things about the long-legged Mack Daddy Obama. But go ahead, Ms. Angel, let's listen to the rest of this.
This could metastasize for Donald Trump, the worries over Colorado, right? This is not a swing state that he would likely win anyway, whatever. But there are other state courts that have already rejected similar lawsuits attempting to keep him off the ballot. And I will name them: Arizona, Michigan, Minnesota. The plaintiffs challenging Trump's eligibility in Michigan filed an appeal to that state's Supreme Court just on Monday. So there is a potential ripple effect here. And, I wonder what you think about that, and also what you think about it being this court. This court that doesn't seem to have much respect for precedent, but calls itself originalist. Its majority does. Its conservative majority does. And a court that has a member whose wife whose wife materially participated in the insurrection and who probably won't recuse himself. Clarence Thomas's wife, I mean.
Yeah. I mean, if the Supreme Court were to affirm this ruling, he could be disqualified, not just in Colorado, but in multiple states. And so, like, the stakes couldn't be higher. As you say, they define themselves as originalists. What does originalism means? It means my layman's take on it is that it's a fairy tale. But if you listen to the way that they talk about it, it's that there's no interpretation. Essentially, that all they are doing is applying the language of the Constitution as the people who wrote that language intended it in their own time. Again, I think it is kind of a fairy tale, but that's the way they talk about it themselves. In the case of the 14th Amendment, this was written in 1868 specifically to preclude people from holding office in the United States if they had engaged in trying to overthrow the government of the United States, or if they had previously been office holders who violated that oath. And so I look at that as a person who doesn't agree with this originalism fantasy the legal philosophy, and I say, well, seems pretty clear to me. But you and I know, and every realistic observer of the Supreme Court knows.
All right, enough of that. Here, let me give my summation of what I think is going to happen. This matter is definitely going to the Supreme Court. It's definitely going to go, and it's going to go quickly. And they're going to rule, and they're going to rule quickly. Because to not rule quickly would be to say we're going to drag our feet about this, meaning that we're going to let Trump run and we're not going to validate what has been said. So they're going to have to rule quickly. Here's the issue. There are people like Clarence Thomas, who I've raised the question, is he a grifter or a player? And then Samuel Alito, who was a hard right conservative. And then you got Justice Kavanaugh, you got Amy Coney Barrett, you got Neil Gorsuch, and you got Justice Roberts on the Supreme Court justices who would have the power to rule one way or the other. I think people like Neil Gorsuch, Amy Coney Barrett, and Brett Kavanaugh, along with Justice Roberts, are going to think long and hard about this nation. Because they realize there's not a debate here. There is no debate as to whether or not Trump is ineligible. He's ineligible. There's no debate. Everybody knows he participated in the insurrection. They raised the question about whether Jack Smith charged him with insurrection in the coup trial in Washington, D.C. is not the question. Everybody knows that Trump is not eligible. My concern is that my thoughts, however, is that Justice Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett, I think Neil Gorsuch, and John Roberts are going to say, what do we want to do with the legacy of our nation? It would be one thing if Trump was running as a regular president, but Trump is now running as using the language of Adolf Hitler, talking about poisoning the blood of our nation, calling certain elements of our nation vermin, saying he will be a dictator on the day he's elected. Were those things not out there? Justice Roberts may hold his nose, and Brett Kavanaugh and Neil Gorsuch and others may say, let's just let it go. It's language from 1868, it's over 100 years ago. Let's let it go. But now that Trump is demonstrating that he is now quoting and praising Hitler, praising Kim Jong-un, praising Erdogan in Turkey, and praising other dictators, I think that Brett Kavanaugh and Neil Gorsuch and others that make up the six conservatives on the court are going to say it's going to be up to us to say, and we'll block Trump. We'll actually make a ruling that will say and uphold the Colorado state decision. At that time, you're going to have a plethora of other states that are going to do the same thing, and at that point, it's just automatically upheld. And Trump can't win if he can't win certain states. The other thing is that you've got people like Kevin McCarthy, that snake called Ted Cruz, that lizard called Lindsey Graham, and there are others. Josh Hawley is another, who are senators, right? These are some of the most despicable men that have ever walked upright on planet Earth, who may try to, if Trump is barred, Ted Cruz may try to run again. He may try to launch a last-minute quest to run for president and get a snake like Lindsey Graham. And then you got that other snake, Kevin McCarthy and Josh Hawley. You got a bunch of these Republicans who are absolutely swamp rats. So I said to you several years ago that Trump is the trigger of the tribulation. You didn't believe me. But you can call the year 2024 Matthew 2024. That's what you can call the year 2024. You can call, in terms of the election procedures and other things going on in the year 2024, you can call it Matthew 2024. You can call this election of Mack, because Trump is the trigger of the tribulation. And either way the court swings, which I tend to think that, as I said earlier, Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, Barrett, and John Roberts are going to really think about this. Listen here. The Constitution also says that nobody under the age of 35 years of age can run for president. Because people out there in Iowa, and you got these MAGA hat wearers talking about, well, I think the people ought to decide. No, hell no. The Constitution says that if he's under 35 years of age, he can't run. The Constitution says if he's led an insurrection, he can't run. Don't let the people decide. Don't let a 24-year-old run for president when the Constitution says he got to be 35. But you got these MAGA, stupid maggots out there that, it's unbelievable the stuff that comes out their mouth. At any rate, we're in the tribulation, but nobody wants to acknowledge it. And I've discovered the reason why they don't want to acknowledge it, because they don't have enough sense to know that we're in one. And Jesus has kept them from knowing it. Otherwise, they take some measures and save themselves. I think that's all I have to say about that. Right now, it's the talk of the town. Everywhere you look, it's Trump. He's got 4 trials, that mega trials going on right now. And so the other item is that, and I definitely will go. The other item is this, is that I think that the war in Ukraine will cause also the justices to look and say, Trump has said he's going to support Vladimir Putin. He's going to support Russia. He's going to drop our relationship NATO and NATO, and in Article 5 of NATO, which means that any NATO nation that's attacked, we are obligated to support them and against whatever their enemy might be. Trump said he's going to get rid of all of that. But if Trump is barred by the Supreme Court, it's going to be held in America. You better stock up and get yourself a bomb shelter, because the MAGA people, all they know is violence. With them it's the bullet or the ballot or the bullet. Anyway, I've had enough of this. Thank you for listening to me. I'm going to take a break. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. I got something I want y'all to listen to. I want y'all to listen to this. Don't go anywhere. This is very important about my battle.